Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. You might be wondering, who are the best prospects still available going into day 2 of the NBA draft? And I've got the answer here for you with my own big board. And let me tell you, there are some good prospects still out there on the board and some guys in the early 30s that are highly intriguing names that I think a few teams would really love to add to their roster. Welcome everyone to Utility Sports. If you do enjoy the content today, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go follow over on Twitter. Link is in the description for that. We have seen some awesome growth over on Twitter over the last few days or so. Of course, live streaming and everything. And if you want to check out my big board a little bit more in depth yourself, it is over there. But let's jump into that big board now, and we're going to start over at the very top. Obviously, Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Derek Queen, Kaman Maluach, all of them off the board. So who is the highest ranked prospect that fell through the cracks from my personal subjective big board on day 1? And that player is Adou Thiero at number 11. You see him right there sandwiched in between Kasparis Yakachonis, who went at pick 20, and Ace Bailey, who went at pick 5. And I think that's a testament to how weird day 1 of this draft was. You saw players going all over the place. People going to teams we never expected. We saw Hanson Yang go in the first round, in the middle of the first round. You saw Yannick Konan Niederhauser go at number 30. It was a wild first round. The Pelicans were aggressive, and through the cracks slipped a couple of guys like Adou Thiero, who, for me, I still am a big believer in. I think he's one of the most functional athletes in this entire draft class. And I think for a team now, not only are you getting, yes, listen, there are some shooting concerns, but not only are you getting a player who has some great athletic tools, but they are applied athleticism that I think stand out in a big way for a variety of reasons. One, his impact defensively as a low man helper, a gap defender where he can get in on driving lanes, rip the basketball out of the ball handler's hands at times. A lot of impressive clips, a lot of impressive moments from him in this most recent season at Arkansas, and even going back before that, his freshman, sophomore campaigns at Kentucky. Adou Thiero is a very good prospect and one that I think is a huge standout player that is still out on the board at this point in time. I'm very excited about what he's going to be able to bring to a team from a defensive standpoint. And then he's also a possession winner for a team, where his ability to go out, get on the defensive glass, win contested rebounds, win possession battles, get on the floor a bit, outrun guys to loose balls. All of those functional physical tools in a possession-by-possession game as the NBA becomes more and more turnover-oriented, extra possessions, early transition opportunities. The more deflections and havoc you can cause defensively, the better. Adou Thiero is going to be an additive defensive piece to that kind of context as well for a variety of teams. With him still on the board, beginning on day 2 at pick number 31, there's a long list of teams that should strongly, heavily consider him. I think he's going to be a tremendous target for whoever ultimately does select him on draft night. I think he's going to return much better value than that draft slot indicates. It's not overly shocking to me that Adou Thiero is not off the board. In my mock drafts, he has most predominantly been in that 28 to 30 range, with the likelihood and the acknowledgement that there's a good chance he does ultimately fall into the second round. This is one of my guys in this year's draft. I'm a huge believer in his game. I think he's going to return much better value than that draft slot would indicate. Jace Richardson, of course, did go at number 25. Neek Clifford went in the 20s as well. And then you go down to 18, where we have Rasheer Fleming. And I think Fleming, for a guy who, listen, the ceiling isn't that immense. I do think he can maybe function down the road as a 5th starter, but more than likely could just be a solid off-the-bench top 8, top 9 rotation player for your team. His length and size are the greatest additive pieces for him moving forward to an NBA roster, measured at the NBA Combine at a 6'9" listed height, barefoot. So you're looking at a legitimate 6'10" forward with some small ball capabilities and an impressive 7'5" wingspan, a solid standing reach to boot. I think this is a guy who not only did his defensive skills and physical advantages show up on tape from his tenure at St. Joseph's in the Atlantic 10 when it comes to getting in passing lanes, blocking shots at the rim, rotating as a helper. I still think there's a lot of room for him to grow in terms of his actual intelligence and understanding where to be. I'm talking about basketball IQ, of course. And I think for Fleming in general, there is still a lot for him to uncover and unlock in his game defensively. But The offensive talent is pretty clear too. He's a guy who can shoot the basketball, shot 39% from three this past year. Now he's not going to garner the hardest of closeouts, but he can be an effective straight line driver against hard closeouts. He's going to be able to take advantage of that, but his best play type is honestly as a cutter and finding avenues and finding ways to the rim unimpeded. This is a guy who I think is going to return pretty decent value. It's not like I'm overly super excited about him. I just have him 18th on my board. And you can see as you kind of get lower and lower on this board, the more everyone kind of gets bunched together with similar ceilings, similar floors. But I still think Fleming can be a solid return piece for someone, especially at the top of the second round. For teams looking for more length and size and defensive talent, shot blocking, rim protection, Fleming checks a lot of those little boxes for a team with still some offensive talent to boot as a play finisher, a cutter, and a spot-up catch-and-shoot shooter. Of course, a guy who I was not surprised at all, in fact, I've been saying for months that he will go in the second round but will return first-round value, is Koby Brea. Have him at number 22 on my board. He is arguably the very best shooter in this year's draft. It's really between him, Trey Johnson, and Con Knippel. Funny enough, Con Knippel goes 4th overall. Trey Johnson goes 6th overall. You might be saying, well, what's the holdup here with Koby Brea? If he's almost as good of a shooter as those guys who are going in the top 10, why is he still on the board? Well, defensively, he is a little bit limited, measured in with a negative wingspan. That is going to be a concern. He will be hunted a little bit. Teams will go after him. Now, I think he's going to hold his own decently well, adequately, but he's not going to be this super additive defensive piece, whereas Trey Johnson has some of that upside with that physical acumen that he has, a 37-inch vertical. Con Knippel's tough, physical, gritty, gets on the floor, really big-time hustle player, still for a team, which is why Charlotte ultimately took him at 4. You know, Koby Brea is not going to give you all of those traits, which is why he is just lower on my board as well in comparison to Trey Johnson at 5 and Con Knippel at 6. But I'm still very high on Brea's ability to shoot off of movement, shoot off of handoffs, stretch the defenses. I think he's going to be specifically an elite deep range marksman, shot the ball from 3 more frequently than anyone else in this entire draft, the highest 3-point attempt rate among all college prospects in this year's class, and the best conversion rate on them too over the course of his college career. So not only is he a high volume 3-point shooter, but he's an elite one when it comes to actually connecting and making them. And then his 2-point volume is much better than a guy like Chaz Lanier out of Tennessee. He's going to be, of course, a guy that people are wondering about with Chaz Lanier. Koby Brea is just a much better version. Turns the ball over less, shoots the 2-point shot better. He's very reliable and consistent, an elite true shooting percentage guy, a fantastic free throw shooter. Koby Brea just through and through is an awesome basketball player, someone who I think could carve out a role very similar to a Landry Shamet or a Malik Beasley, maybe a Jason Capono, and maybe even at the highest extent a Kyle Korver if he lands into the right situation. Now, movement shooting is dying out just a tad bit in the NBA. It's not the most prevalent, popular role anymore, but I still think it's extremely valuable, and when you have a creative coach and a smart coach who knows how to utilize these kinds of players, it adds extra layers and wrinkles and dynamism into your spacing offensively, and I think Koby Brea can be an elite value addition at number 22 on my board, and ultimately a second-round pick like I projected all along. Ryan Kalkbrenner at number 26. I was very surprised he did not go in the first round on draft night this year. I really like Ryan Kalkbrenner as a player. I think this is a guy who dominates at the rim. All of the analytics back that up. His impact, BPM, all of that stuff suggests he's going to be a good NBA player. Now, is he a high ceiling guy? Is he going to be a multi-time all-star? Is he going to be a long-term starter in the league? Probably not. But this is a player who's going to return significant backup center value for a team. I thought there were a number of teams at the end of the first round that could have used him. I would have significantly preferred him for the Clippers over Yannick Conan-Niederhauser. I think he's just a much more NBA-ready player with a more defined skill set, a dominant true shooting percentage this past year. And again, it goes to show how effective he's been within the play styles that he's played within and playing within himself, playing within the flow of the offense. I think Kalkbrenner is a very effective big man, a very reliable backup big long-term. He ultimately does not go in the first round. I still have him at number 26 on my board. I think he will be a good value for a team. Mark Sears, number 30. Of course, he is not a surprise to not have gone in the first round. Did not expect him to be a first-round pick, although I do think he could return first-round value this year as my number 30 prospect. This is a player who might even go undrafted. This is whether or not he's an undrafted player or not. He can return good value. You also look at a couple Duke guys at 34 and 35 for me, and Tyrese Proctor, Sion James. Both of them I expected to be second-round picks. It's not surprising that they made it this far, but they can be solid players, solid options for a team. Then you look at Ryan Nembhard, Noah Penda, a few other players that ultimately will be second-round picks. Nembhard, I think, can be a very reliable backup guard. Quite a bit different than Sears. Sears is going to have that kind of scoring mindset, that downhill dynamism, and the ability to get to the free throw line, whereas Nembhard's going to prioritize ball security, initiating offense for you. So if you're a team looking for a backup guard, there's two different options here. You can look for someone who can initiate offense, prioritize ball security, prioritize your team running actions and sets. And you also have the guy who's going to be handling in ball screens a ton in Mark Sears and creating offense for himself. And then as a driver, creating for others off of that in kind of more freelance motion offense, freelance downhill play as you go, read and react kind of style of offense in Sears. So there is some differences there. Noah Penda at 37. For me, I understand the hesitancies here from teams. You're looking at a player who comes with his own host of flaws, especially when it comes to shooting the basketball. I just am not a full believer yet, but he does have some awesome defensive talent, and especially in isolation in the LNB Pro A has found a ton of success winning out in space one-on-one as a matchup defender. And I think for a team, if you're drafting him in the second round this year, what you're looking for is a long-term development of his jump shot. If you can find similar pathways to how Dorian Finney-Smith developed early in his career after coming out of Florida and turning into a really good player for the Dallas Mavericks. Early in his career, of course, headlined by his shooting development. If Penda can change his shot mechanics a bit, speed up his release, lift his upper motion, especially I think his release point just has to be a little bit higher, and I think he has to avoid dipping the ball so low on his shot to begin with. But if you do those things, you find a little bit of growth there, and he develops as a shooter, improves by 2, 3, 4 percentage points, which is significant but not overly crazy to expect. He could return pretty solid value as a second round pick. I will scroll through my board here now as well to showcase some of the other options. If you have questions about anybody who is still on the board, let me know. But again, this is up on Twitter. Link is in the description. As you can tell, there are some guys who I did not love that got drafted very high in round one, or just drafted in round one in general that I did not like a lot. But thank you all so much for watching. These are some of the best prospects that are still available. Just to recap again quickly, I have Adou Thiero, who ranked number 11 on my board. Rasheer Fleming, who ranked at number 18. Koby Brea, who ranked at 22. Ryan Kalkbrenner, who ranked at 26. Mark Sears, who ranked at 30. Tyrese Proctor, Sion James, Ryan Nembhard, and Noah Penda, who ranked 34 through 37. Thanks again all so much. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe if you did, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.